BS, Nintendo Switch 2 sales do not matter. This is something that I hear people trying to throw at others online. We see content creators constantly trying to say this and downplay the sales numbers that we've seen so far with the Nintendo Switch 2, or accuse people of bootlicking or shilling by mentioning these type of things, sales numbers or views sales, whenever they feel like discussing certain aspects. So being hypocrites at the same time. But as someone who's been around for a long time creating content and has seen multiple Nintendo console launches, any content creator, anybody online that's trying to tell you, which I've seen multiple times, I've heard in videos, that Nintendo Switch 2 sales shouldn't matter at all, or it's not important, or why are people even talking about it, that is just BS. And I'm going to explain to you guys exactly the reason why here. Now, if just hypothetically, we know that the Nintendo Switch 2 factually has sold 3.5 million units in its first 4 days and continues to sell well, having sellouts in various spots in the US, and of course in Japan, it's pandemonium over there. So the system is doing well. But hypothetically speaking, if the launch sales did not start out as well as Nintendo would have hoped, or if the sales weren't looking too good, you would have never heard the end of it from content creators, from articles, people writing on these websites, from people on Twitter, and all sorts of stuff. Let me give you guys just a snapshot or example of what I'm discussing here for those who don't believe me. Look at what happened with that one article about the fake Nintendo Switch 2 bad sales when it comes to third-party games, which an NPD analyst himself with Mass Piscatella said it's way too early, and how we can look right now on the Nintendo Switch 2 eShop and see that 9 to 10 out of the top 15 games are third-party titles. So look at what happened there. You had people who told you that sales shouldn't matter too much, or of course, oh yeah, I knew it was gonna sell well, but yeah, who cares? We had them making videos on the supposed bad sales of the Nintendo Switch 2 third-party games. I also want to add that a 2-week audit on third-party sales is absolutely insane that no other system has ever went through as well. So imagine if that was actually the system itself. Trust me, these same people that are telling you one thing would be completely about facing. You'd be hearing it from every single website. Every single thing would be talking about that. So when people are trying to sit here and tell you that the sales don't matter or it shouldn't matter or anything like that, that's just a code for what actually happened, because maybe they're upset or it doesn't fit their content, or it would have been better for their own content if the sales were doing bad, because negativity is what, for them at least, what sells their channel and what gets them money and gets them views. We've seen that with the significant portions, large amounts of misinformation being spread, with people barely doing any research beforehand, just looking to get a quick upload and make a quick buck when it comes down to it. I don't believe it for 1 second when certain people say the sales don't matter or anything like that. We've even had, at this point, right before the Nintendo Switch 2 launched, we've had consistent people writing articles saying that you should buy this instead. Oh, the sales are this, but you should buy this portable PC instead, or whatever the case is. Or saying even like Nintendo Switch 2 has to face portable PCs in terms of sales wise. Imagine if the sales weren't actually good. Obviously, Nintendo Switch 2 is crushing portable PCs, but imagine if it was somewhat close. You would never hear the end of it, because we never hear the end of it right now at this point. So when people sit there and try to tell you that they don't matter, or if anyone's trying to convince you that, or say, oh, well, you're bootlicking for bringing them up, trust me, they would have no problem and also bring up sales as well. Now, we can go all the way back. It's not just with what's happening right now. The console war days were rife with this type of stuff when it comes to Nintendo versus PlayStation or Sega or whatever the case is, before the internet really matured as it is right now at this point. People still to this day constantly bring up the GameCube and its sales, constantly bring up the Wii U and its sales. The Wii U came out in 2012. We're going on 13 years, and people will bring up the Wii U and the GameCube, which the GameCube came out in 2001. They will bring that up on why the Nintendo Switch 2 was going to fail. I kid you not. Go there, look at the articles, look at the different stuff people have said, look at the videos out there. They will bring up the Wii U, they will bring up the GameCube. Systems that are a decade to 2 decades old that are completely different philosophy, completely different management, a bunch of different types of games, and they will use that to justify why they think something will fail as content for people out there. And once again, if you disagree or if you say, well, no, I don't think so, you will be accused or peppered with names or certain things. So do not believe it, guys. As someone who's been around for a very long time, do not believe when people try to push that in your face, because we already have a lot of stuff with that just with recent examples overall. The Nintendo will fail videos, yes, they were not as frequent when it comes to with the Nintendo Switch 2 compared to the Nintendo Switch 1, but the Nintendo Switch 1 had consistent videos on that. We had big content creators that were talking about that. We had stuff like Kinda Funny Games, and we had Call Moriarty, and we had all sorts of people making videos saying that it's going to fail, or all sorts of stuff for content overall. So they absolutely matter. But before we get into this next half that I think that you guys are really going to like, please make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Click that like button and let me know what you've seen online when it comes to people talking about Nintendo Switch 2 sales or whatnot. Now let's go ahead and jump into this next half. Anybody that's trying to tell you that the sales do not matter or you shouldn't care as a gamer has no idea about business, has no idea about video games, has no idea even why this stuff even happens. This is first and foremost a business. In order for a business to do well and for you to get what you want as a consumer, things have to sell. With the Wii U era, for example, things did not sell. So therefore we got less, and we also got a shortened generation. There was less content, there was less games, there was less stuff for fans out there to play overall. The Nintendo 3DS sold well. So what did we get? We got more games, we got more content, we got more third-party games, we got more features on the Nintendo 3DS over the Wii U, and the 3DS lasted significantly longer than the Wii U did as well when it comes to getting games. The Wii U, when it comes down to it, was birthed and died within the walls of the Nintendo 3DS, which launched before it and finished after it. So when you have good sales, it actually benefits the people that are liking the system or liking the games. One of the things with the Nintendo Switch 1 was that it sold so well, it convinced many third-party developers to actually put their games on there. At the beginning, it was very light. They did not have confidence in Nintendo launching a system great or selling great. Yes, the 3DS did good at the end of it, but the beginning was pretty bad. And then if you look at the Wii U, that was pretty much bad throughout almost the whole time period. So third-party developers were not interested in creating stuff on Nintendo Switch 1 because of what happened before. Now you compare that to what's happening with the Nintendo Switch 2 and how from the very beginning, instead of getting stuff like I Am Setsuna or getting games like Super Bomberman R, those were the third-party games on the Nintendo Switch 1 at launch. We're getting stuff when it comes to Hitman, or we're getting things like Bravely Default, we're getting Street Fighter 6, we're getting Split Fiction, we're getting significantly better third-party games already right here at launch and announced compared to what we got with the Nintendo Switch 1. We even have Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade announced for the system, in addition to Borderlands and 007, major games, big AAA titles, whereas with the Nintendo Switch 1, we didn't start getting any announcements of those type of games until later in the directs, until we saw a game like Doom 2016, for example. So the reason why we're getting that is because the Nintendo Switch 1 sales were so good and the developers were so impressed and they made so much money, they did decide to, okay, we're going to actually put some time and effort into making some Nintendo Switch 2 first-party games, into making some Nintendo Switch 2 games at launch, and we're going to have a pipeline of development when it comes to bringing out games in the future, so we can get games like Borderlands and 007 and Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade and Elden Ring and all the stuff that's already been announced, which you have to trust me on this if you weren't around at that point when it comes to seeing the launch of the Nintendo Switch 1. It was so much more emptier in terms of the games and the announcement of the games. And I'll also say this when it comes to third-party developers and content and the sales overall, they absolutely want to see that Nintendo is still selling systems, because the larger the install base that you have, the better chance your games will sell. If you have a small install base, you're just available to less customers overall. But if you have a big or massive install base, you have more customers that can buy your product. So third-party developers absolutely want and need to see that the sales of a Nintendo system in particular are very good, because a lot of those sales are going to be eaten up by Nintendo fans that want first-party games. So having a large install base gives them a better chance overall compared to having a small install base. The Nintendo Switch 1 is a perfect example of that, where lots of third-party developers were actually able to sell a ton of games because the system just had a massive install base. Same goes for any other Nintendo system that has had 100 million plus install base, where there's going to be a lot more third-party games compared to the Nintendo systems that have a smaller install base. So when it comes to the sales of the system, it's absolutely important, and it 100% matters, because if the system doesn't do well, then we're just going to get less stuff overall, and third-party developers are not going to want to develop on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, I'll also say this. I did mention that specifically Nintendo systems kind of need to have those sales numbers. It's because they're not doing exactly what Microsoft and what Sony are doing, and PC. If they were, then maybe it'd be a little bit different. But obviously still Nintendo would want to have more sales so they can sell more games. Everybody wants that. But it might be a little bit different because the ports would be a little bit easier to bring over. Yes, Nintendo Switch 2, it's not hard necessarily to port over titles from what we've seen, but it does require some different type of logic and work, considering it's not x86, it's not like PC architecture. So that's why you see, even with the Xbox not selling too well at all, you're still going to see a large majority of people putting out their games on there, despite who knows how well the game sales are or not. But either way, you're going to see that because it's essentially just PC hardware overall, x86 in a console form. With the Nintendo Switch 2, that's not the case. It is not the same type of thing. Still powerful, still good, but not the same type of thing. So you're going to have to make sure that you spend some extra time on getting your ports ready or getting your games ready for the Nintendo Switch 2 if you're bringing it over from PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, or PC, whatever the case is. So that's the reason why for Nintendo specifically, it's very important that their sales are good, because it's more convincing to these third-party developers overall. And I'll say this, guys, I think that this industry, we need different types of people that are willing to kind of take a chance on something like a true hybrid dedicated console. Nobody else is doing that at this point. We got a bunch of portable handheld PCs, which clearly are not the same thing as a PS Vita or a Nintendo 3DS or a PSP or a Nintendo Switch 1, something like that. And then we have the regular x86 type of consoles when it comes to Microsoft Xbox Series, in addition to PlayStation 5. We don't have a ton of console makers. We don't have a lot of people doing these type of things. I mean, we pretty much have nobody doing something like what Nintendo's doing. Handheld PCs are not quite the same thing, despite the industry and people trying to write it like they are. They're just not overall. So I think that it's very important that Nintendo continues to have great sales, but they also have to continue to bring it. They have to continue to improve. They have to continue to get better, and they're not above criticism or anything else that people are doing. So I think that that needs to continue to get better as well, and we'll kind of see how Nintendo goes going forward with that. But yes, guys, anybody that tries to sit there and tell you that the sales don't matter, it's nonsense. The sales do matter. It's something that has always mattered. People have constantly talked about it. And if this system wasn't off to the best start ever in console history, if it was the other way around to where it was one of the worst starts overall, you would never hear the end of people bringing it up. It would constantly be a source and a topic for the same people that are trying to tell you that it's not important or calling you names for bringing it up. It's very important to get more games. It's very important so the developers can get paid. It's very important so we can consistently see a flow of games from Nintendo and from third-party developers. There is a lot of importance in how well the system does, especially, like I said, for Nintendo when it comes down to it. Now, Nintendo is diversifying their revenue output overall, but they're still mainly a video game developer. So those sales are absolutely going to be really important. But those are my thoughts on this, because I have seen some videos and people trying to claim this and people talking about it. And of course, accusations that are thrown out on Twitter and on other places all the time. But this is the reality and the truth of it. As somebody who's been covering the game industry now for a decade and a half, and someone who's been there playing the games from the original NES. But all right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this one here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.